let's talk about what we're planning for 2025. So welcome back to any returning viewers, to any new viewers, a very warm welcome to you and a very happy new year. And this video will be coming to you on the 4th of January, so the day before 12th night. The decorations come down the day after you see this. So let's talk about what I am thinking for 2025. None of this is set in stone. Things will change, things will adapt. I'm trying to be a bit more sort of flexible with my planning going into 2025, and I'm not thinking full year. I'm not mapping out the full year just yet. I'm not doing like hard and fast, I must do this kind of goals and achievements. I'm setting myself targets, I'm setting myself wish lists, things I would like to achieve, things I'd like to look into, things that I'd like to try. But realistically, I'm not going to get them all done. I tend to overplan, so I'm trying to labour that point to myself. I'm not going to get everything that I want to get done, because life. So what I've done instead of setting hard and fast goals and I must do this, that and the other, is I've thought about, right, what do I want to actually tackle first? What do I want to deal with? What do I want to approach first? So I sat down and I had to think about what projects I've had on the go for a long time. So we're talking 6 months, a year plus of being on the go and not being completed. And I wrote myself a little list, just of the ones that I could think of. This will not be everything that I've got on the go, and not everything that I've had on the go for a long time, because I need to have organised the craft room to have worked out what I've got. So just the ones that I knew I had, that were on my mind, that I was thinking about. So we have a list of 18 projects. So there's the Barragan from the knitter, so the magenta and cream stole shawl project. The Scheherazade lace beaded shawl. Now, this is possibly the oldest project on the list. I mean, not definitely, but possibly. This one I started in the old house. We got engaged 2 houses ago. And that must have been about 2018 that we got engaged. We were thinking of getting married near that house, didn't have the finances for it. We started planning and booked a venue in the second house, had to cancel it because finances changed. So after we cancelled it, I had started working on what was going to be a wedding shawl, partly to sort of keep my hand in wedding planning and keep that sort of idea alive. So it's this beautiful lace shawl with beads on it that I'm doing in a thread weight, very, very super fine heirloom weight lace yarn that I got off Etsy with some tiny little beads, and it's beautiful. But the reason I didn't rush to finish it for the actual wedding that happened in 2024 is because I picked out the pattern and the yarn and everything before the dress. So when I picked out the dress, I was like, that shawl is not going to work with this dress. Because the idea was it was going to be instead of a veil, or used as a veil. But yeah, it would have clashed with the dress. Because it's a grey, like silvery grey yarn. The dress was a kind of warm ivory. And had lots of lace and stuff on it. So the shawl would have been too much with the dress. So that didn't get finished for the wedding, which is fine. I'll still finish it. I'm on the border. It'd be silly not to finish it. It's like double digits of rows left. It's not tons. So yeah, so that'll get done. And it'll fit through a wedding ring. It's that kind of fine. So it'll be a nice achievement to have done. So that's the second project on my list. The third is a hand spun shawl. So this is a shawl that I'm knitting up and sort of making up as I go along with yarn that I span from bats that my now brother-in-law bought for Christmas when he was living here during the pandemic. So the yarn itself was spun up quite quickly. I think I might have spun that during the following Tour de Fleece. But the shawl itself is probably a bit over a year that's been on the go. It hasn't been touched in about a year. And then we've got on to some spinning projects. So I've got some stuff on my spindles that I'd like to progress and like to get worked off. So I've got a silk spin on the go on my smallest spindle that I haven't touched in a couple of years. It's one of those spins that it's very fine. You've got to pay attention to it. You've got to have your skin nicely moisturised so that the silk doesn't catch on it. But that's from, it's not sort of fine silk that I'm working from. It's waste silk that's come off from putting it into bats and things. So it's a nap or a nap. Can't quite remember the word. If I remember the word, I'll put it on screen. I also have a support spin on the go, on the support spindle that I got for Christmas a few years ago. So that I'd like to get finished and spun off. And I've spun up one DK weight skein from my John Arbon yarn. I'd like to get the rest of that fibre spun up because I should be able to get 2 or 3 skeins out of that, I think. So yeah, so that's my spinning projects that are on the go. Been on the go for over a year and not been touched in a while. So this is my thinking for my list. Things that I started ages ago and haven't touched for a while, apart from the Barragam, which has been on the needles for over a year. So we have some sewing projects as well. I have cut out a pair of Mitchell trousers at least a year ago, if not 18 months to 2 years ago. I've no idea if they will still fit, but I think I should probably sew them up and try them on. The Mitchell trousers have an adjustable waistband, so I am hopeful that they will still fit. I have a pair in corduroy that I made before I cut out this particular pair, and I still wear them. The adjustability of the waist is great. This pair is in a cotton, so they'll be a lighter weight. They're a brighter colour, much brighter than trousers I normally wear. I mean, I've worn trousers that bright in the past. I just don't have any in my wardrobe at the moment. So yes, I'd like to get them sewed up. I've also cut out a couple of bra pattern toiles. I haven't sewn them up, and they've been cut out for a year, 18 months, 2 years kind of thing. So I might need to recut them, be able to toile my bras, so they can actually work out what sizes to make in the nice bra fabrics that I've got. So yeah, there's that. I have a needle felted squirrel that is looking kind of naked at the moment. I've got the body started, but it's got no fur and no tail. So yeah, so I want to get cracking on that. That's been waiting around naked for a while. Then I also have a cross stitch project that's been on the go for years and years and years. But cross stitch is a bit like that sometimes. It's a cat on shelves in a library. So very appropriate for me. I have a cat. I like reading. So yeah, so I'd like to get that done. I think, well, I'm certainly over halfway through it. Working on the 3rd quarter, I believe. So I need to get back on that. I have my March top, which is the top that I'm sewing by hand. It's all cut out. I'm doing some embroidery around the neckline, so I need to get the embroidery finished and then the top sewn up. Again, don't know if it'll still fit me. It's been cut out for that long. But it'd be nice to know that I can actually complete a hand-sewn garment project. That's the last garment that I've got on my list. And I have a quilt to finish. So I had some Edgar Allan Poe themed fabric. So I've done a quilt top and a patchwork backing for it. So I need to put some borders on those and get them to about the same size. I think the backing needs to be a little bit bigger than the top, but I mean, the same sort of proportions would be good. And I need to get some wadding for that so I can quilt it and do the border and everything. So that quilt project I'd like to get finished. That's, again, 2 houses ago that I started that. So yeah, I'd really like to get that finished. So it can actually be used. It'd be like lap quilt size. It's not huge because I was working with what fabric I had. It's a log cabin quilt top. So I really enjoyed making the top and sort of roughly patching the back together using what fabric I had left. So the front and the back are made out of the same fabric, rather than buying a single piece of backing fabric because it was my first quilt. I was like, well, I'll just go with it, see what I can come up with. So yeah, it'd be nice to get that finished. My tapestry cushions are still on the loom. I need to sort out the tension and the warp on that, because it's been sat around getting knocked and bashed about a bit since I last worked on it. So yeah, planning on getting those finished and off the loom so that I can update you on how they look once they're finished, because I was keeping a record on video of that project as it went along. And then I have my Christmas cross stitch that I've already mentioned in last week's video, that I haven't touched this season. It would be nice to have it done for next Christmas, so hopefully we'll get that done through the course of this year. I have my spring cross stitch decorations for my little tree on the table, and so they are started. They need finishing. They're less than a year, but they haven't been touched in a while. And then I have my Gamer Crafting Blanket Club blanket to finish. I got the Blanket Club, I think, during lockdowns, so it's been a few years. I've done some squares, not all of them. I've got one part with you. I need to work out what round I'm on. So I'm using Sophie's Universe or Sophie's Garden as the square, even though they're super variegated yarns, so you can't really see the pattern when you look at it. But you get the texture of it when you run your hands over it, and I like having textured things on blankets. So I want to get those squares done, and that turned into a blanket. So I haven't included on that list things like my scrap blankets or my English paper piecing, because I know they're going to be long, ongoing, whenever I feel like it, going to take many years to get done projects. That's fine, they're using scraps, not a problem. But that list of 18 projects, my initial thinking for that list, to reduce my number of whips down, is to see how many of those I can get done in the first quarter of 2025. So January to March. And I've set myself a good, better, best goal, because I work in education and that's the sort of thing we do. So my good goal would be to get 6 of those projects finished by March, or by the end of March. My better goal is 12, and my best goal would be all 18. I think that one's quite unrealistic. Let's be fair, fairly unrealistic. But in order to help me to get as many of those projects done, what I've done is I've set myself some criteria, some guidelines for new projects. I'm not going to ban myself from starting anything new, because let's face it, that won't work. But I am setting myself some guidelines as to the sorts of things that are okay to work on, whilst I'm also trying to get some of these whips finished. And obviously I've not included the ones that I've been actively working on in December, apart from the Barragan, because they're newer starts. I wanted the older ones cleared out the way first. So in terms of garment sewing, new projects need to be either basics, or they need to be spring and summer wear, or both. So stuff that I will actually use, but not sort of the wintry stuff, because we're going to be moving into spring and summer by the end of this first quarter. So anything new that I start January to March, we're thinking ahead. We're going with basic stuff that'll be worn all the time, and stuff that we worn spring, summertime, if anything. Non-garment sewing needs to be giftable, or it needs to be scrap busting, or it needs to be homeware and storage solutions. It can be all of those, it can be 2 of those, but that's my 3 categories of things that are okay to start as non-garment sewing. Knitting and crochet wise, socks, absolutely fine to start a pair of socks. It's useful to have a pair of particularly vanilla socks hanging out in my handbag for when I'm waiting around for things. And that can then mean that they take a while if they're only being used when I'm out and about and what have you. Giftable stuff, again, homeware and storage solutions, again, stash busting. And if I actually decide to get my butt in gear and start designing patterns again to sell, that would be okay too. I'm not guaranteeing that I will through this first quarter. I do have ideas for patterns, but whether I'll actually get to doing those this first quarter remains to be seen. So socks, giftable stuff, homeware storage solutions, stash busting, own designs. They're suitable for new starts for knitting and crochet. Spinning wise, it has to be with fibre that I've got in stash already. So stash busting projects only for new spins. I have more spindles than I have projects on the go. So that theoretically, I could have another spinning project on the go. Maybe once I've finished the ones that are already on the go, but we'll see. Weaving would have to be intentional, so I would have to have a purpose in mind if I'm going to start a new weaving project. So bookmarks for gifts, shoelaces, trims for an outfit I'm making, that kind of thing. And also stash busting, so using yarns and threads that I've already got in stock. And my miscellaneous other craft section, again, giftable and stash busting, they're my guidelines. So if I'm going to start something new, it needs to be falling into one of those categories. That's my plan. But we're only planning for the first 3 months, because a year's a long time. But it does give you an idea of the sorts of things you might see cropping up in videos in those first 3 to 4 months of the year. Because if I'm working on these longer term whips, that's the stuff I'm going to be showing you. So hopefully they'll keep me accountable and actually make me start to think about what I'm working on and actually work on those projects and share with you and that kind of thing. I did also make another couple of lists. One short, one quite long. I've left myself space in the book for what I'm going to focus on in each of the other quarters. But we'll get to that at the end of each quarter. So March I'll be looking at April, May, June and so on. So I have a Futurecraft wish list. So things I would like to make, but that don't fit into my guidelines for new starts for January to March. So these will be later in the year. I want to do a hooded waistcoat top type thing. I used to have one that I bought in a little shop in Hackney, and I wore it a lot. It would be 18 years ago, because there are pictures of me holding my newborn oldest niece wearing this particular knitted item. She's now 18. So yeah, 18 to 19 years ago I bought this thing, and I wore it a lot until I put it in the washing machine too hot and shrank it. So I would like to recreate that or something similar. So yeah, it was a close fitting, must have been sort of worsted weight type thickness, purpley sort of colour. Sat on my true waist, well, on what would be a true waist on somebody who's not short-waisted. So sort of just above the jeans. One toggle button in the middle and a hood, and it had like a braided cable around it, and I loved it. So I'd like to remake that, because I think that'd be a good sort of layering piece for British weather. And that'll be a knitted project. I would also like to make a bed-sized quilt. I haven't specified what size bed, but we do have a king size. So yes, I'd like to make a full-size quilt at some point. And I'd also like to make some Christmas decorations. So a couple of weeks ago I did a video sharing some ideas for handmade Christmas decorations. So there's some of those I would like to make. So stuff to hang on the walls, stuff to put on table settings, that kind of thing. I'd also like to make more gnomes. I've made one gnome so far. Maybe some advent gnomes, maybe some gnomes for different seasons so I can have a gnome around all the time. Maybe more Christmassy gnomes. And I'd also like to make some advent calendars, so reusable advent calendars. Because whilst it's nice getting the fancy chocolate advent calendars, or the fancy coffee ones, or the yarn ones, or the Lego ones, or this, that and the other, it would also be nice to have the same thing brought out each year, and I would do one for my husband and he could do one for me with like little things in there, which would also be helpful because we've discovered he's lactose intolerant, so chocolate advent calendars are a no-no. So yeah, so that's the sort of thing I'd like to do. And I'd also like to do a macrame wall hanging. I've specified large macrame wall hanging. What I mean is I've made ones that are that size. I'd like to do one that's more of a sort of decent, gonna make a statement on a wall type size. So that's my wish list of actual specific projects that I would like to do. I've not gone with this pattern, that pattern, this fabric, this yarn, just the actual, this is what I want to make. I'll worry about the pattern and that kind of stuff later. My longer list I've called new crafts to try / revisit brackets wish list. I'm not going to read all of these out because there's quite a few. The things that I want to get back into doing some more enamelling that I had a bit of a dabble with last year, year before. Bit more sort of work with clay, so both air dry clay and polymer clay. Bobbin lace. I dabbled in some bobbin lace and some needle lace years ago. I have a bobbin lace partly done, because why wouldn't I? in the craft room. So I want to do more of that. So I get back into doing that. The bobbin lace is quite relaxing. There's only sort of 2 moves that you do. So when you get in a rhythm, you get in a rhythm, and people who've been doing a lot of it can get really fast. I'm not, but it's possible because there's a limit to how many moves that you make in bobbin lace. Needle lace is a bit more like embroidery. So that fits in with some of the other things that I'm dabbling in at the moment. I want to have another go at punch needle. So I've dabbled in that a little bit. I meant to try making some silk flowers before the wedding, never got round to it. So that I would like to have a go at. I keep seeing cloisonné turning up on my social media feeds. That seems to be true cloisonné. Looks like it's an enamelling process, but the cloisonné kits that I keep seeing, there's no heat involved. You're using coloured sand and glue. So it's an enamel type process, but I don't know that it's necessarily true enamelling. But it's quite pretty, and I think that would be a nice one to have a go at some point, maybe for some gifts. I want to try gold work. And there's a few art bits and pieces that I'd like to get back into. I have done watercolours in the past, I've done some drawing in the past. I haven't done any of that for a while, so I'd like to get back to that. So there's lots and lots of things that I want to try. I am not expecting to get anywhere near through this long list at the bottom in 2025. That would be ridiculous. But if I have the itch to get back into something that I've dabbled in or to try something new, at least I've got a reference point of the sorts of things that I was thinking about trying, that I can then investigate a bit further. But that won't be until after March. We're not trying any new stuff until after March. And theoretically, we won't be buying much in the way of new supplies until after March, because if we're not starting anything new and we're not doing many new cast-ons, there might be some, if we're not doing many new cast-ons, then yeah, come April we might actually be able to afford to buy some stuff for these new crafts that I want to try that I don't have the supplies for. So yes, that's my thinking. We're going to work in quarters in terms of hard and fast plans. And the first quarter is going to be very much focused on clearing off some of these older, long-standing whips. Then as we move through the year, we can start picking up newer stuff. Because then I should have the space for the projects, the time to actually work on them. I mean, it might be the first quarter and the second quarter are working on these long-term whips, and I'm not picking up new stuff until into the summer. That's fine, because we are working in 3-month chunks this year. I tried to do that last year, but the wedding took over, as they do when you're planning a big event like that. So yes, that's my thinking. That's my plan. It's all in my bullet journal. One thing I haven't done for ages is update my Ravelry properly. I put my gnome on there, but otherwise I don't think it's at least a year, if not 2, since I've updated that with projects, and I don't have a record written down anywhere of the pattern, the yarn, the needle size, that kind of thing. So that would be useful. So that's something else that I would like to get into in 2025, is getting back into recording my projects and their details. So if I want to return to a yarn or return to a pattern, I've got a reference point for it. But that's a minor thing. Anywho, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. There's this video here if you'd like to spend some more time with me, might be of interest to you. And I will see you soon. But until then, happy crafting and bye-bye for now.